Would you please find a seat? As advertised, are all candidates forum for Mayor and Area D Director is starting at 6 o'clock. Our sponsor this evening is the Boundary Country Regional Chamber of Commerce, and joining us and assisting with the program, and one of the organizers is Alan Cooper. Could you raise your hand? Alan, thank you. My name is Michael Strukoff, and I will be the moderator this evening. And I'm going to go over the rules for tonight's all-candidate forum. Although we had requests for some changes, they're sticking to our guns, and that'll probably be a debate for a future all-candidates forum. Now, we did have a draw out in the foyer for speaking order, and so for Area D, the speaking order will be Eileen Perepalkin, followed by Willie Russell, followed by Bob Kendall. Those will be a 2-minute opening remarks that our candidates have. Then we will move to a question period. Now, to assist in keeping our forum balanced and every candidate having equal opportunity to speak, there will be 2 minutes only that each candidate has for remarks, whether they're opening or closing. And Alan is going to assist with the timing. So at the 30-second warning, Alan is going to show a yellow folder, and I will have my little xylophone in case the candidate is looking at their notes, and this is the folder. And at the 2-minute mark, then there'll be a red folder, and that's when we invite you to applause. And that will definitely be the sign that time is up. Now, I believe we have a representative from the media here this evening. Yes, we do, from the Gazette. And so we're going to give them an opportunity to ask some questions of the candidates each time. They'll have 1 minute, and candidates have 1 minute to answer the media. Then we'll open up the questions from the floor, and that's when any of you participants have an opportunity to ask a candidate a question. Candidates will be limited to 2 minutes, and again, we will have a yellow folder and a red folder, and on the red folder, we invite you to applause, so they'll have to limit their answers to 2 minutes. What we are doing, though, is a little bit of a change-up. Often people ask, can we ask all the candidates the same question? And we're saying no. You have to pick one candidate to direct your question. You have to identify yourself when you're asking the question. But the candidates have the opportunity to do a rebuttal. each candidate has up to 3 rebuttals. So for instance, if a question is directed at Rolly Russell, he answers it, but Irene would like to answer that question as well, even though she wasn't asked, she can use one of her rebuttals and have a chance to answer that question as well, even though it wasn't directed at her. And people from the audience, you can ask a question to one candidate, then you have to sit down and then to someone else. Now, at the end of the session, when we probably are running out of questions or about an hour has passed, we will close the question period and we'll go to the closing statements from each candidate and we go in reverse order. Now, I think that pretty well covers all of the rules we have. We do have microphones for questions from the floor, so if you are going to be asking, you need to come to the microphone, state your name, identify which candidate you're directing your question for so they're alert, and you have 1 minute to frame your question. I'm going to be firm about that simply because we want to hear as much as we can from the candidates, not position statements from the audience who's not running for election. So I think that pretty well covers the ground rules. We are ready to start. And I need to make one other introduction. Irene, could you just raise your hand to make sure everybody knows Irene? And sitting to Irene's right, your left, is her daughter, Nancy. And Nancy's here just to provide a little bit of assistance if there needs to be a little bit of clarification of some of the words. And that's just to provide Irene a little bit of help because of some health issues she's had in the past. And I think we're all comfortable with that. Okay, so we're going to start with our 2-minute opening remarks, and I am going to ask Irene to come to the podium.
Electors, I am Irene Garofalken. I am born and raised in Area D, Grand Forks. I have worked with Area Jumea and Tony Loader. I have been working for a director of 6 years. My goals: to preserve the rural lifestyle of our area. Number 2 is ensure in agricultural lands are intact. 3, preserve areas, sites, traditions, and artifacts. And number 2 is development support in Area D. Support area in Area D. I have a government leadership level 2 certificate, and now mediating skills. Thank you for your vote for me and for preserving my valley. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene. The second candidate for the one position Area D Director is Rolly Russell.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out. We have a full crowd. That's nice to see. I think, I struggled with trying to figure out what to say up here because I think that we all kind of know what you want to hear. And so I don't want to spend too much time here, and I'd rather just get right into the questions. Just a couple points, I guess, to make clear that I've been doing this job for the last 22 months, and I've learned that I really enjoy it. I think I've done a very good job. I'm not going to belabor the things that I've accomplished. At the back, on the table there's a list of some of the things that I have accomplished over the last 20 months, ranging from our community plan through to lobbying the province regarding the LR changes and so on and so forth. I'm here because I really love this place and I want to make it better. And so I really feel like I can do the best job, and I look forward to hearing what kind of questions we have moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Rolly. And our third candidate is Bob Campbell.
Good evening, and thanks for coming out this evening. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Bob Kendall. I'm a transplanted farm boy from Saskatchewan. I'm foremost a family man, married to my wife Debbie for 34 years, and very proud of our children and our 3 grandsons. I've been an entrepreneur and businessman for most of my adult life and operated a heating and air conditioning company here in Grand Forks. We've lived in Area D for the past 9 years, and I've served on City Council for the past 3 years. My vision for Area D is to realize its potential, to take on the challenge of a leadership role to promote change and progress in this region. We need to showcase the potential of our area and to encourage growth that reflects our values. We all have similar reasons for loving this place and what makes it special to us, and how we would like to see things unfold in the future. We have a choice either to be led into the future or be responsible, take the lead, and create the future we want. Residents of Area D deserve to have a much greater impact on the social and economic future of the boundary. It is imperative that your representative have the political will, the courage, and the leadership to respect the past, put differences aside, and work cooperatively with our regional partners to chart the future for the entire boundary region. Residents of Area D have an obligation, no, a responsibility to elect a representative who has demonstrated the ability to bring people together, to listen, to be respectful, and have a vision for the future. I will bring the same commitment, work ethic, and success I've achieved in my past to my role as director of Area D. I would be proud to be your director for the next 4 years, and I'm asking for your support on November 15th. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder to candidates, we do have microphones on the table, and so when we go into the question period, please use the microphones at the table. There's no need to come to the podium. We're going to start off by asking our media representative from the Grand Forks Gazette, and he'll share his name with us. And we have a little different rule for the media. He is allowed to ask all the candidates the same question, but he only can ask a few questions, and then he'll have to sit down. Oh yeah, go ahead. You'll get it. Okay, try again.
Hello. Hello. Hi, it's Craig Lindsay with the Grand Forks Gazette. My first question to all of you, I guess more for Rolly and for Irene. What are some of the things that you worked on in the past as directors with the RDKB through the Area D, and what do you think are some of the things that you've worked on that you'd like to see continue to work on and improve?
Okay, Rolly, go ahead.
All right, thanks, Greg. So as I said before, I've got a little list up the back there of the things in the last 2 years that I've accomplished. And these include things like shepherding the community plan process from start to nearly finished. And I thank my APC and my OCP committee that helped work on that. I think a number of them are here. I think that the amount of collaboration between the city and Area D has improved significantly in the last 22 months. There's agricultural land reserve, Bill 24 came forward. I think I successfully lobbied for some of those changes to that legislation that were then changed, and I'm happy about that. The animal control bylaw, which is clearly a contentious issue, which was what I jumped right into, and I think that was cleaned up significantly for a lot of people that were concerned and listening to that feedback. And again, I could go on, but I'm assuming I'm getting close to the end of my minute.
I had a stroke about one year ago, so I'm a little bit slow with this. So I'm having I had preserved heritage sites. And I had just all helpful, and Nancy just a little bit helped me.
She also brought Saddle Lake into a provincial park, trying to preserve some of our natural habitat.
We had to
We also got a lot of funding for Toba School. And also preserve the flower mill.
And this is for Bob, and if you can answer. You worked with city council and moving on to Area D. How would you work together with the city to make the whole area stronger?
Hope this is on, okay. Well, I think having spent the last 3 years on city council, it gives me a unique perspective as to how important these relationships are. We need to have an ongoing, open discussion about where we, as a community, as a valley, want to go. We can't have two different perspectives going two different directions and to hope for any meaningful success. So I think it's just creating an open dialogue, having meaningful discussions, and picking one or two issues that we can work collectively towards.
Rolly or Irene, you want to pick up on that question?
I guess I would just add, I think that it's important to recognize the complexity of economic development in our area, and I think going forward without an active collaborative kind of environment between the city of Grand Forks and the rural Grand Forks area is kind of a non-starter. But I think that it's a big challenge figuring out how we move forward proactively and efficiently without just picking specific projects and moving those forward, but recognizing the complexities of what economic development really means in terms of economic development financially and socially.
No, I'll direct this at Bob, but it's for everybody as well. You mentioned change in your introduction. You mentioned change and growth. What do you think needs to be changed or should be changed? And I guess for all of you, would you like to see growth in Area D, and what kind of growth?
Well, I think the number one factor, the thing that is compelling me to run for Area D is that Area D has the potential, the power, I'm trying to think of the right verbiage, but we have the ability to be a significant voice in what happens in this valley. And I think in the past, Area D has remained kind of passive. And I think that we can definitely step up and take a larger leadership role on how we want to proceed, what's important, and take those agendas and speak to the city and our other regional partners to come up with a solution to what we want to see for growth, what are our values. But we need to have that conversation, and we need to take a leadership role to get there.
Irene?
I agree with that. I think those are good comments that Bob had. I think three of the issues that are important to me are figuring out how we do a better job of getting our agricultural lands into production, which means a lot of focus on small lot agriculture. And then secondly, figuring out how we capitalize on making the most of those lands, and so value-added processing and so on, and removing the barriers that exist at this point for those small businesses and so on to make the most out of their 5 acres or their 10-acre production systems on those properties. And I think that from that comes the diversity of small businesses lead to a much more resilient and stable economy given the kind of global landscape right now. So I think if we can actually see that those businesses thrive, we're going to be in a much better position moving forward.
not saying it properly, people have the abilities to have the I can't say this one, sorry.
That's all the questions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're opening the questions from the floor. I had one gentleman that came down earlier. This is a good time for you to come down again. And anybody else that's thinking of a question for one of our candidates, please come forward as well. Remember to introduce yourself and identify the candidate you're directing your question to. Okay, go ahead.
My name is Shomisi. I've been living here for 31 years, and even with my connection from this time still around. I have come from a friend of mine, coming and visiting me, around this area. And the thing was, the most flagrant thing is all the dirt was beautiful. Okay? Oh no, we have rocks, but they stay their place. Okay? My question is why we don't use all that beautiful dirt we have around. They're trying to expand the city a little bit, and trying to get the nice, really nice. That's glacier dirt. It's more than we can dream about.
Okay, so who are you asking this question of?
I will ask that to Mr. What's his name again? Rowley. Okay. Why Rana or Rowley? Why they want to expand the city and try to get all that beautiful earth, okay, instead using it.
Okay.
I guess from my perspective, I don't sense that the city is overly zealous in terms of their expansion plans, at least as far as I'm aware of. There could be other information on the horizon. But I think that the reason that we see so much good agricultural land is not in production is barriers that are associated with infrastructure and barriers that are associated with education. So there's a lack of basically apprenticeship between existing farmers that know what they're doing and young people that want to get into farming. And there's a lack of availability of tools for those small lots again, because it's not financially viable to operate those. So I think that local government, there's a potential there to help not remove those barriers, but bring them significantly lower down so that we do see more of those productive lands in active use.
Excuse me, sir, no follow-up questions. Is there any other candidate that'd like to pick up on this? Okay, Rob?
Yeah, to answer your question, having just come from City Council, I can assure you that the city doesn't have any plans on expanding out into the regional district. Agricultural land, small lots, it's very, I think it's directly related to just the economic viability of a small plot. We can have the ideal that it's a great thing to have, and we should encourage using those agricultural lands for production. But for a young family, the reality at this point is that there doesn't appear to be, as far as I know, an economic driver, an economic end result to allow them to go there and make a living on 5 acres. And I think we need to actively pursue what can be done. What are some unique and new ideas that can give them the opportunity to move to a small acreage and make a living? And I think that's the key.
Anybody wants to get into this one as well?
Hello. There also is a very big problem with equipment around here. This area is very difficult for getting equipment, and we also have an issue with irrigation. Our irrigation district is full to capacity. There is no more water. We have to figure out how to bring in more water in order to use this land.
Thank you. You want to use, wait again, Roland? Okay.
I get to use my rebuttal for myself. I would have to respectfully disagree with you, Bob. I think that if you look at agriculture around the province, some of the most productive agricultural ventures occur on lots of less than 5 acres. And those are those very labor intensive but very small scale production systems like mushroom growing or greenhouse production. And so the data out there show that there is a lot of capacity to do a lot of food production. You're not going to be producing hay on 5 acres, but the real kind of value added agriculture, there is capacity there for that.
On my left.
My name is Barry Brendo. My question is to Rolly Russell. If you are a square up Area D representative this time over, will you encourage democratic process to deal with issues important to our community? Will we finally start incorporating transparency and accountability in issues? In other words, are we going to get some of these damn issues out of the shadows and away from personalities? I know it's a tricky one, important one to me.
Thank you for the question, Barry. Absolutely. I think in the last 22 months, I've been struggling with trying to work in that direction. So taking grant and aid policy, for example, which I know is contentious, and there's an extreme lack of transparency there in terms of people. If you're not at the meetings, if you're not in contact with those directors, you don't even know who's applied for those funds. So you don't know who's been refused. You only find out who's getting that. So my steps in terms of increasing transparency on those sorts of fronts have been to help lobby the RDKB to develop policy on those grounds, and as well just on my personal front, trying to be a lot more transparent and communicative with the electorate in terms of what actually is going on, because people aren't going to go and read those minutes after those meetings.
Anybody else want to kick in on that? No? Okay, lady on my right.
My name is Karen McKay. I'm with the Area D, and I live in the Area D. And my question is for Irene. I understand that the regional district has been paying for 2 directors for the past 2 years. I also understand that the regional district assured you that you could come back to work at any time as soon as you felt you could resume your duties as Area D director. I'm unclear as to why you would tell people that they would not allow you to come back, and unclear as to why you did not go back, seeing as you were being paid to do so. Do you think it's okay for the Area D to continue to pay 2 directors, especially when you're not doing your job?
First of all, there was no double pay. That was a false statement that should have been corrected. They are getting paid under one salary. She is getting her basic living allowance. Rolly Russell is getting paid for going to meetings. John McLean is one of the reasons why Irene is not back at work. So you will have to take up that question with him. Thank you.
No, you've been waiting much longer than he has.
Hi, my name is Erin Perkins, and I live in Area D. And this actually is a question for Mr. Kendall. I wanted to know, in light of the changes that are coming down for the Agricultural Land Commission, how you plan to continue to protect our Area D small properties and large properties from being engulfed by subdivisions.
I think that my understanding of what's come down from the Agricultural Land Commission is we've been designated as a Area 2. And what that is it allows the regional district to just consider alternative uses for farmland. They are still in the LR, but it gives us the ability to not, the LR rules are very specific. If it doesn't meet this criteria, it cannot come out of the ALR. What they've done in certain areas of the province is given the local authorities the ability to look at different scenarios on a case-by-case basis and make good, sound decisions about whether there's a reason to move forward and get some land out of the ALR. But when it isn't just an open book as to getting land out of the ALR and developing it.
Rolly's exercising now on this rebuttal.
Yeah, just to add to that, because that's one of the issues that I was actively lobbying along with a number of other people in the community, lobbying against the provincial government for some of those changes. And initially, the way that legislation was drafted said that in terms of making decisions, the Agricultural Land Commission had to take into account, for Zone 2, as Bob has pointed out, so that's the rest of the province other than the Lower Mainland, had to take into account both agricultural outcomes and economic outcomes and social outcomes and a few other pieces on the list, which of course is how any decision at the local government level has to take place, and presumably any decision at the provincial level. And so one of the pieces that I lobbied in terms of talking with Minister Letnick about that, the second ag minister that came in, was to say there needs to be a prioritization there so that agriculture comes first and then those other values. And so those changes were made in that legislation. And so now what it means is that if you apply for non-farm use for those areas, they're able to take into account those other aspects of why you might be wanting to enter into a non-farm use arrangement, and that decision could take place at the province or on a more regional level. Thank you.
Grace, the gentleman behind you had just sat down. He was wrestling Libby.
Thank you. My question is for Mr. Russell.
And you are?
My name is Eric Gillette. Some time ago, I phoned Irene. She was off due to medical reasons. I talked to Rolly. My phone call, you said you were very busy at that particular moment and that you would call me back within 15 minutes or half an hour. That was 22 months ago. I'm still waiting for that call. My question is, are you going to continue to work at such a rapid pace?
Thank you for the question. An absolutely fair point. So to be clear, 22 months ago, we got the call from Nancy to ask me to step in. And at that point, I was in a position where I was working full time at my own jobs, and my position was meant to be a temporary replacement. And so I stepped into this position always with this understanding that at some point in the immediate future, I wouldn't necessarily be here. And so for the last 22 months, I've been in this state of uncertainty about how long I'm in the position. And so I've been trying to manage both my existing workload and being a reasonably decent parent and the workload that's associated with this job, which from my perspective, to do a good job is a full-time position. And so I have been extremely overburdened for the last 22 months, and I apologize for not getting back to you. But I think sitting up here now, I'm eager to move forward with the social license from the electorate to be able to say, yes, we want you to do this job, and to be able to actually plan my time so that I know that I have this position for the next 4 years and can do an even better job for you guys.
Yes, Beverly Tripp, I'm a resident of Grand Forks, and this question would be directed to Mr. Kendall. In light of the Kettle River watershed management plan that has just been released, what would be some of your ideas for water conservation in Area D?
I guess water conservation is something that is up to each one of us. It's really difficult to mandate conservation. I think that the The irrigation district gives us some guidelines to go by. And I think it's just social responsibility. I don't think that any regional director or anyone else can make anyone do anything. It becomes a personal thing for all of us to just be good stewards of our resources.
Okay, well, that's your last one, by the way.
I figured I may as well. Thank you for the question. I think that as the chair of that watershed management, the stakeholder advisory group that's been contributing to that plan, I think some of the pieces that are most, there's the greatest potential for increased efficiency there has to do with things like low-till agriculture and relatively new agricultural technologies for our area that are not new for other places. And the barrier there, from my perspective, is education. So people are not aware and they need to be able to see how those processes work. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm really eager to see development somewhere in our area of some demonstration kinds of agricultural projects so that we can show farmers, and especially new farmers or old farmers that are looking for new ways to do things, show farmers how they can accomplish things with less water, for example, and be more productive. And those technologies are certainly there, but they need to be demonstrated in order for them to be adopted.
Okay, Grace, microphone's yours.
Yeah, this is a bit tough, but I need to clarify an issue. There has been 2 directors paid for in Area D. And Rory, I'll direct this with you. Did you not work for the first few months without getting paid? And also, the regional district has made it very clear through a letter that Irene could come back to work at any time. And I believe that it would be unfair for people to think otherwise. So, Rory.
Thank you. So from when I first came into the position, I was a typical alternate position would be not remunerated for anything other than actually attending meetings. So that includes the mileage costs and so on and so forth. So for the first while, and I don't remember at this point whether it was a month and a half or a couple months, I did the job essentially as a volunteer. And then at that point, I had made it clear that it was to be working full time in this position I was unable to continue to do that. And the regional district made an arrangement whereby both Irene and myself were receiving the director's stipend, which is the monthly sum of funds that you receive for doing this job. So absolutely, and I think was there a second part of your question that I missed there? Oh, sorry, just to clarify too. My understanding has always been that as soon as Irene was ready and feeling able and willing to come back to work, that I would no longer be in the job. And so for the last 22 months, I never knew how much longer I would be in that position.
I think John reflected a little bit on this, so I'm going to let Nancy know.
To our knowledge, I had no idea that you were getting paid in full. The last time that I had talked to John, that you were getting paid for the meetings and meetings only. Okay, that's my fault, sorry. John never informed me of anything different. That's what we went on. They had put Irene through many different things. Every time she tried to come back, she was refused to be let to meetings. She had tried to go to meetings and they wouldn't let her. I don't know what to say any further. She had tried to go back to her job many times.
Thank you for that question, Grace. Grace McGregor is the regional director for Area C, Christina Lake. She's been re-elected by acclamation, and I believe currently she is the chair of the regional district board. Okay, next question.
My name is Monique Van Uyck. I live here in Grand Forks, one of the city council candidates. I actually have many questions for Rolly, but I had to narrow it down to one. You say you see a future in agriculture. We're a border town, perfect for importing and exporting. Grand Forks in the history of being Canada's #1 seed supplier because our plants come to seed very quickly. There's a huge demand for GMO-free seeds, organic foods. Do you see a future here?
Thank you for the question. Absolutely, I think it's important. I think probably a lot of you have seen the YouTube excerpt from the National Film Board video from 60 or 70 years ago that was focused on that seed export business. I think that the economic environment that we're in is very, very different than it was at that point, and so thinking that we will be able to reinstate that, I think is not necessarily that reasonable. But understanding that we do live in a fairly unique climate for a lot of those productions and production systems. And so, for example, looking at the nurseries, we have some extremely successful nursery systems here, and that has everything to do with the climate that we're in. So I absolutely see that there's a future for those types of high value agricultural products, and that's what I think that I would like to see happen. I sit on the provincial board for the organic certification committee, and so or board of Canada or BC, and so through that, I obviously feel like there's a future for organic production, and there's that's a big conversation to get into.
My name is Hamilton, James Hamilton. I'll address my question to Rolly Rankin, is it?
Rolly Russell.
Russell, sorry. Okay. Councillor Kendall in the past has voted for something along the lines of water control, which is, we know his position on this, and I'm trying to find out your position. So the Agenda 21 has been very strong in controlling water and bringing in something, any kind of law that will restrict the use of water and make it better somehow. Now, in the Councillor Kendall voted for fines of minimum fines of $1,000 per day, up to maximum fine of $10,000. $10,000 per day.
Mr. Hamilton, you have to find the question here,
Okay,
sir.
so here's the question. If or when this comes to this area, will you vote for such draconian fines to be imposed upon the people, or will you go against that?
Thank you for the question. I would hope that my answer would be no. I wouldn't be such a draconian decision maker. But I understand that these are complicated issues at the city council table as well. We live in a Area D has a very different set of demands placed upon them, and we do not have the same sort of infrastructure systems that you have in the city, and so those kinds of decisions would look very differently. So that would be up to irrigation districts, for example, that are on those water systems, whereas anyone Area D on the broad level, from a regional district perspective, we have jurisdictions where people that predominantly draw water from wells. And so one thing that comes to mind is a quote. It's attributed to Einstein, but it wasn't actually Einstein. I forget the guy's name. But he said, "Not all that counts, and not all that can be counted counts, and not all that counts can be counted." And I think that the reason I like that is because it identifies that if we know what we're doing with our resources, we can do a better job of managing those resources.
Thank you. I'd just like to comment on what the questioner brought up was one small part of a bylaw that deals with a much larger issue than just fines. It is a small part of what needs to be done to control and to utilize a utility in the city. I'm not in favor of fining anyone for anything, but there are rules, and anytime that you have a utility and people using it, you need to have some rules and some deterrent against breaking those rules. And that's all that was about.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Christine Elsacer, and my question is for Rolly. Earlier this evening, you talked about the need for transparency, and I understand that during the time you've been appointed as a regional director, you've also sat as the chair, I think you indicated, for the steering committee of the Kettle Watershed Committee, and I'm just wondering if you can tell me how many hundreds of thousands of dollars have been spent on that plan that's been worked on, and also where an interested person might be able to actually find the budget that has supported that planning process.
It's a very good question. From my understanding, because those were decisions that I kind of came into halfway along, I think that, and again, I would have to go back and look at the budgets to identify how much we actually have paid into that. But I believe we would be looking at the order of $250,000. Again, I would have to go back and check those budgets. The budgets themselves, for example, if you're interested in looking at the first drafts of the budget for this next year, which just came in front of us at the board table at our regional district meeting this last month. And so if you go online, it's very easy to track down the agenda packages for those, and the budget in its full hundreds of pages glory is all there to have a look at. I think a more exciting piece of that to talk about is the implementation phase of that plan, which as we move forward, going into next year, we're moving into that implementation phase. And when we go over there, it's what we agreed is that we pay a very small amount of money for kind of core funding for our consultant, and then we receive grants and so on to bump that up to a full-time position so that we can continue to make sure that those plan outcomes are actually implemented. And I think it's particularly important to make note, I guess, that those funds are either entirely or very nearly entirely all from gas tax dollars. So those are not local tax requisition dollars that have gone into that. They absolutely are tax dollars, yes, and I frankly think it's a good use of the tax dollars.
My name is Christine, and my question is directed towards Irene. I'm just looking for clarity on the upcoming 4 years, if Irene would be able to continue to do the position herself, or she would always need to have Irene to follow with her, because Nancy, because Nancy seems to answer some of the questions for Irene. So would you be traveling to all of the things with Irene and be answering the stuff for her, or is Irene actually able to do the job solely herself?
I will be doing it right, because I can do the trail and everything else. And
it was more so tonight because these are questions that she's put onto the spot and can't right away say it.
But I can say it like I can read it and everything else. I can all that stuff. But I can do that. Okay.
Okay, last call for questions from the floor. Okay, seeing that there aren't any, I'm going to give the heads up to the candidates that we're going to proceed now to our closing statements, and it's going to be in reverse order. So it'll be Bob Kendall, Rolly Russell, and then Irene will be the third speaker. So our timer is ready. They have 2 minutes. Yellow is the 30-second warning. Bob.
Thank you, Michael. In closing, I think this is the time for RAD to embrace the fact that we can and will be an integral part of the future of the boundary. We need to take the lead and create the future we want. I believe that to achieve lasting success, we need to look at the big picture. What kind of legacy do we want to leave for future generations? These are questions not easily answered, but we need to recognize and respect the past, but have the political will to move forward. We need to be committed, resourceful, and creative to chart a plan for the future. My goals for Area D for the next 4 years are, number one, to make it my priority to create a great working relationship with all of our regional partners, to raise the profile of Area D, to have a greater influence on the social and economic future of the Bunbury region, the promotion of agricultural initiatives, and to play an active role in promoting regional economic development. Finally, my goal is to be accessible and accountable to you, the electorate, to make informed decisions for the common good with no personal agenda. Leadership, commitment, hard work, and proven success, these are attributes that I will bring to Area D as your director. I respectfully ask for your vote on November 15th. Together we can do great things, and together we can do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. And Rolly Russell.
All right, thank you, everybody. This is my continuation of my response to the question from Mr. Gillette, I believe it was. And given that I didn't exactly ask to be in this position 22 months ago, and I want to make an active choice to be here now. This is a poem by Mayoral. The summer day, who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean. The one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who was eating sugar out of my hand, who was moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who was gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Tell me everything, doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? I think that I can do a good job of being open to input, being collaborative, being fair, being transparent moving forward for the next 4 years. I have the experience and skills to do this, and I have the motivation and the capacity to do this. I really do love this place, and I look forward to your support in helping me to make it better.
Thank you, Rolly. And our final speaker is Irene Kirkland.
Thank you. Thank you for voting for me for this year and the next 4 years. And please, thank you for preserving our valley, Area D. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all the candidates. It's always a courageous choice to run for public office. Appreciate the risk that you take in bringing yourself forward for the electorate. November 15th is polling day, and all candidates are running for 4-year terms. So thank you, candidates, for Area D Director. We're going to take a 10-minute break. Could you please take your seats? Candidate Dembski, would you please make your way to the stage? Dembski. Again, Mr. Dembski, would you please make your way to the stage? Okay, we can settle down now. So this second half of our forum is dedicated to those 5 candidates running for the position of mayor of Grand Forks. This is for a 4-year term. We are going to follow the same rules that the area 2 candidates followed. So we have had a draw for speaking order. And the speaking order for this portion of our forum starts with Donna Simona, followed by Brian Taylor, then Peter Dembski, Frank Conrad, and Cheryl Myers is the last speaker with opening statements. At the end of the question period, we reverse the order for the 2-minute closing statement. Again, each candidate will be able to use 3 rebuttals to jump in for questions that are directed at other candidates from members of the audience. And we'll be a little more lenient with the questions from the media in terms of how Mr. Olson chooses to direct them. Again, there's a 2-minute warning, 90-second warning, so 30 seconds left with the yellow folder and a little xylophone if you don't see it. And the red then is your 2 minutes are up, and I'm inviting the audience to clap to make sure that the candidate knows it's game over. So, we have a great turnout today, and I am going to ask Donna Simon to start off with her opening comments. Donna, and I invite all the candidates to come to the podium.
Good evening, everyone. Wonderful to see you here tonight. We are here because we care about Grand Forks. If you care about Grand Forks, raise your hand. Yeah. I'm excited to share with you tonight. One can learn about my skills, qualifications, and experience at the Boundary Sentinel Online, Grand Forks Gazette, Shaw Cable, and GoToFM. Thank you for all these media outlets for providing information on candidates to the electorate so that citizens could make well-educated decisions when voting. As you've probably noticed, I am passionate about protecting Grand Forks, its people, water, and land. I want to do everything I can to keep Grand Forks, FAB, fabulous. We've had a long-standing reputation for being friendly, affordable, and beautiful. We have the power to keep Grand Forks fabulous by working together. When you elect a mayor and council, it will be their responsibility to work on behalf of you. Here's how it could be. Have you ever heard of the elephant and the blind man's story? If you have, please raise your hand. There was a big elephant, and each blind man was holding the elephant in a different part. One was holding the tusk, one was holding the trunk, one was holding the leg. And they were arguing about what that elephant looks like. And the truth is, the elephant was the elephant, they just had their different perspectives. I believe that if we listen to each other, we will more likely understand that elephant better, even though it may seem like someone's describing something different. So I'm all about a team approach, working together to handle our challenges. We have a lot of talent in the community, and I'd like to see us work respectfully.
Thank you, Joanna. Brian Taylor, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Grand Forks is experiencing some modest economic success. I attribute some of that to the efforts of city staff, to an effective city council that made good decisions in terms of marketing the city. But in fact, the truth is, our time has come. The overflow from the Okanagan, the kind of interest in our community has a lot to do with being an attractive place to live. Our business success has been recognized by our peers. We have a workforce at the city that's proud of the work they do. I think you can see that in the work that they're doing around the city. They've also taken a position that they are the caretakers, not the builders. So it's given us a whole new flexibility in working with our employees in terms of getting things done fast. You'll see that around the city. The problem is, though, that we've got to be careful that we don't become a really successful business and forget about the fact that we're a special kind of business. We're a city. So we need to clearly look at our social responsibilities. We need to be cautious that we're not picking up responsibilities and burdening our taxpayers here locally with those added responsibilities that should be the province for the feds. I want to tell you now that our city is a city with a heart, but we can be careful, we can make good things happen without taking responsibility away from those other levels of government. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. Our third speaker is Peter Dempsey.
Hello. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Peter Dempsey, and I've lived here all my life, and I love this town. It is a beautiful place to live, but we need more jobs. A large portion of our workforce is leaving because there simply is no work. Okay? GF needs to recover economically. It would also be mutually beneficial to partner with Christina Lake to raise our area's profile. I have a 3-point plan in mind to achieve this. First, we need to make the This is a retirement destination. And second, we need to attract tourism. Third, we need to expand our industrial base. If I'm elected, I will work with council to make this a reality. Also, we need to cooperate with Community Futures to make it easier to get small business loans, with an emphasis on filling the empty storefronts in this town. Another proposal I have is a youth center to keep the kids off the street and give them something to do. I believe everyone should be entitled. Oh, regarding the water meter issue, I believe everybody should be entitled to a certain amount of free water before having to pay. We need a strong leader, and I'm your man. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Our fourth speaker is Frank Conrad.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Frank Conrad, and I'm running for the position of Mayor of Grand Forks. I believe there are numerous issues that need to be addressed. Economic development, tax reform, and of course, our failing infrastructure, to list just a few, including growth in business, as well as other sectors such as education. For a city that stops growing, becomes stagnant, and eventually dies. Furthermore, there needs to be much more transparency at City Hall so that the citizens of this city feel that they are a part of what's going on around them. My 35 successful years of business management, dealing with employees, and interaction with the public renders me to be the perfect candidate for the position of mayor. After all, running a city is no different than running a business. If managed properly, both will be successful. In closing, may I say that the democratic voice of decision-making must be put back into the hands of the citizens of Grand Forks. So for strong, honest, open-minded leadership, where we all can work together as a community, vote for me, Frank Conrad, so that we can achieve the true vision and recognition that Grand Forks so rightfully deserves. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. And our last speaker is opening comments and share matters.
This evening. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and candidates. 17 years ago, my family moved here because we saw the potential, the beauty, and there's so many friendly faces. Now, I could stand here right now and talk about infrastructure, economic growth, environmental protection, but all of these issues and much more are being managed very effectively by our competent city employees. We are looking good. There is something far greater that needs addressing. The Grand Forks that has emerged over the past 4 years is the biggest improvement I've witnessed. Yes, it is time with the guts to keep the momentum going forward. I'm speaking about the evolution of our city, who we are and where we are. Multi-utility infrastructure planning ready to go, an environmental protection vision that has been combined alliance of our major industry volunteering alongside special interest citizens and taking problems head on. First with the Boundary Air Quality Committee and later the Environment Committee. But air doesn't have any boundaries. And neither do the two rivers running through our valley. We are seeing solar applications evolving, and it's only the beginning. All of us here today are responsible for the future of Grand Forks. This brings me to a recent telephone call I had from an Area D director who extended her wishes for my being their next mayor in Area D. It is this valley, the valley we call home. So the next 4 years will be determined by you. Strategic planning and budgeting begins in January, and you will be asked to participate. Be prepared with your questions. We've had opportunities in the past.
provider. You have candidates 2 minutes to answer any questions that you pose.
Mr. Lindsay? Anyway, that's fine.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. Mr. Taylor, I'm going to ask you about the infrastructure of the city and how in the last year, I believe, there's been one major paving project, and you talked about, or the council's talked about waiting for grants. I do believe a lot of other cities are also applying for those grants, so do you think it's prudent for the city to wait on fixing roads and sewers and such, whether you know these grants are coming or not?
The city asked the electorate to give permission to borrow 4.5 million to work on infrastructure. At the same time, there was economic difficulty both at the provincial level and the federal level, so Build Canada, the fund that we were trusting would be a contributor to the money that we were going to borrow from the community to begin these infrastructure projects, dried up. So for us to go ahead and do infrastructure, we have to be very cautious. Our paving and work that we did on 68th Street was about 450,000, something like that. And the kind of work that we did there was a calculated risk because we do want to reserve the money that we have asked to borrow until the province and the feds come forward with their share. And they are. There is a new fund coming forward for small communities, which we will be in line for, first in line. Thank you.
I think, I don't see why we're wasting money on building roads when we need jobs in this town, It's kind of a no-brainer.
About grants, I remember attending the event at the Gallery 2, and there were special guests who were talking to us about employing foreigners and having business come, and they made it very clear that grants and government things are unpredictable. From going to the February 10th meeting, council meeting, I think it was, we were told that twice our city applied for water meter grants and didn't get it. And then we found out early this spring, the third time, we applied for a specific water meter grant, we didn't get it. Our city decided to use our gas tax savings, which we've gotten over the years since 2006. That money could be used for solar and transportation. And I am very nervous about this approach of counting on grants. I would like us to see if we can figure out how we can do things by ourselves independently. Yes, we apply for the grants, but I'm nervous about spending over $1 million counting on a grant.
Mr. Lindsay, excellent question. And I want to inform the electorate out here that you're looking at $127 million of infrastructure in this city. Yes, $127 million. Right now, we're falling behind by $3.85 million a year. There's only one way we can do this, and that's what federal and senior levels of government are there for. They're there for our funding partners. It's not a handout. Believe me, we're all paying the taxes. We need to get some of that money back into our communities.
I believe we cannot wait anymore on the infrastructure issue. I have a report in front of me dated May 2009, where we had critical situations of infrastructure failing. How much longer are we going to wait on this issue? It is true there's a big budget involved in this, but we must start somewhere. Otherwise, what's going to happen to our city with that monster underground?
Next question.
This is directed to the chair. Would you like to see more business development, and how would you like to see, how do you envision the city growing economically?
Thank you, Craig, for that question. When I moved here 17 years ago, I counted 13 empty storefronts in our downtown core. And, You know, today we are seeing a transition through retail, through online shopping. So our downtown core is evolving differently now. If you take a really good look at it, we have some very strategic businesses downtown. Now, we've developed through the council and working with staff, we do have a development showcase that has listed properties that the city has, vacant properties that we put up for sale and encouraging foreign investment. And we are working with, we are a member now of the UDI, which is the Urban Development Institute in Kelowna. And just last week, we sat down with 160 developers in the Okanagan area to discuss the opportunities that we have here in Grand Forks.
Anybody else want to pick up on your question? Any other candidates? No, you don't have to use Donna?
Okay, regarding economic development, I would like to see surveys and more communication with the citizens to find out if we've got some unmet needs for business opportunities. Businesses would be more likely to succeed if we are focusing on meeting the needs of the citizens. Also, in terms of encouraging economic development, we could take a leading role in thinking about environmentally friendly economic development. And one of the things we can do is, if we're going to have industry and create things, we make long-lasting things so that each time we create them, we don't pollute as much. They're meant to be lasting a long time.
Any other candidate want to weigh in on this one? Peter?
I think we need to hold community futures accountable for, you know, what the situation in this town. Their job is to basically revamp the town or get the town going. And I see just a bunch of people sitting there collecting their government checks and they're not doing anything. It's very difficult to get a loan, you know, and basically a person should almost be able to go there and get a loan on a handshake, because people are getting scared away from the community futures because they keep getting refused, you know? And so basically it has to be made more accessible to the public. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, one more, Mr. Lindsay?
Okay. I'd just like to ask everybody if I can, and maybe start with Frank. It's been touched on a little bit, but what would you do to keep youth here? What do you think should be done in the community for jobs and stuff for youth to do?
If I may say, to start with, we should have a better system of extended education. Secondary school is not enough. Young generation goes all the way to Kelowna and other places. It breaks up families, and then eventually families leave too sometimes with kids. I feel we have the potential to have a college in Grand Forks, and we must pursue that avenue.
It is probably right we need to change the school curriculum to reflect the needs of the province's energy and growing economy like that. So we might need more electricians, we need to, and plumbers and stuff like that, tradespeople, and concentrate on maybe an education towards that end. And you know, science and all that stuff is good, but you know, we need stuff that's actually really beneficial to the province.
Well, the youth are our future, and there's no mystery here. We are a rural community, and to think that our Selkirk College locally would become a larger institution as it stands today, but it is our local learning center. And if we all look back in our own lives, when we've gone off for trade school, for university, for post-secondary, but the idea is to bring those youth back. And I see people here every day. I look at a candidate here sitting at the table who is is one of our youth who was returned to the community. So we have opportunities here. I can give you a list of jobs with civic info that match about 180 to 200 a week around this province, where you could get the training, and we can train our youth locally here with jobs in Grand Forks as well. Thank you.
I think one of the things we have to watch we don't try to do is to push against the norm, which is young people really want to get out and experience the world, so they are going to leave. I think apprenticeship programs are coming on strong. The province is funding them now. That's a great opportunity for young people. Maybe we could have a farming apprentice role. Selkirk College, I think we can do a lot more in that area with catering to youth and allowing them to get some of their education, or all of it, right here in Grand Forks. Thank you.
Each one of us makes Grand Forks the way it is, the fabric of Grand Forks, the youth included. So they make a difference. I'd like to encourage them to consider what can make Grand Forks more wonderful. Think about it. If you need to have a partnership with the educational system and the government interacting, and see what entrepreneurial ideas they could come up with, and us welcoming and supporting them. One thing that is dear to them probably is the environment. They could probably do some educational projects. One idea I had was that they could, anyways, I've got a variety of ideas. They could be ambassadors with the environment and also social skills.
Okay, we're going to now move to questions from the audience, so if anybody's interested, you can approach the mics. I'd like to mention to the candidates, now I'm counting those rebuttals. You only have 3. When we were doing the media, we had some flexibility, but now you can only weigh in on 3 questions, and I'm counting. Okay, lady on my left.
My name is Jane Trim, and I'm a resident of Grand Forks. Got my utility bill yesterday with this little note in it, and I have a question for Brian Kelly. You state residential water meters not only encourage conservation and allow for billing equity, but will defer the need to spend millions of dollars to upgrade the city's water infrastructure, such as pipes and reservoirs. How is a water meter in my house going to help the water main out front of me in a subdivision that's a little over 20 years old that has busted twice?
I only have time for the short answer. The fact is that the water meters are just part of a master scheme that we have, which includes education, it includes conservation, it includes a number of things. Measuring is the first step in terms of controlling our water, and that's the step that we're taking. We're controlling it, we'll measure it, and we will conserve. Thank
you. Right?
I believe that there's other ways of doing it. Being in the industry myself, why were we not doing district metering, where we section off the city and establish exactly where our water is going, not necessarily being abused by the public. It's been done in Revelstoke with great success at a cost of $6,200, not $1.3 million.
Sure.
Well, I knew water meters would be out here this evening. And, you know, as I said, 17 years ago, there was water restrictions here in the summertime when I moved here. Those little water meters with the batteries in them are designed to slow the flow of water. That's what the intention is for them. That will save, reduce the wear and tear. It's no different than the engine in your car. You're revving it down the highway at 150 miles an hour for 3 hours. It's no different. And what we have trouble with here in the summertime is maintaining the fire flow in the event there's a fire. And that's the reality.
Bigger than
I think it's everybody's inalienable right to have free water, because we need water and we need food to live. And just because you're poor should not be a reason to have your water cut off. You know, you don't have to go to your neighbor to get your water. You know? And so basically, but if you abuse it, of course, then those people should have to pay a little more. You know? So it's what you do with the water meters that matters. It's not whether you put them in. You know, so that's all.
Frank, you know, Frank, you've already used one. I really. Okay, Donna, then Frank.
Our maximum day demand of using water has been going down over the years, so we're using less. And the Kettle River, when there's a problem, if it's a dry year, it's at the end of the summer. Choosing to go the route of water meters is a very expensive choice when there are less expensive choices out there. Also environmentally invasive. Every time you purchase things that you don't need to, you're contributing to pollution, including water pollution. There were better options to try first. I hope other areas will consider that for the future. About these particular water meters, they're put in with RF frequency. This is a recognized possible carcinogen. The residents are being cornered into putting them in their homes. And this is the first time in the history of Grand Forks that a possible carcinogen is trying to be put into every home. I have concerns about that. The people who don't want to take that risk are being forced to pay extra money. I think we need to consider these things, educate ourselves. There is no question about the possible carcinogen, and I hope that we can the next council will consider a more socially friendly way to handle this situation environmentally and treat the people with respect, not for corner them into this situation.
May I just briefly recap? On conservation can be achieved other means. By bylaw enforcement for bylaws that are in place and are not being enforced. We are paying bylaw officers to enforce these bylaws. If they're not going to be enforced, let's take them off the books.
My name is Roma Hampton. Good evening, and thank you for the privilege of asking Mr. Frank Conrad a question. It is in connection with bylaws that I'm asking. We have had mentioned earlier this evening that there is now a new bylaw brought in by the outgoing council that with water infraction, we are under the potential of paying $1,000 to $10,000 a day. My question to you, Mr. Conrad, if you become our mayor, do you consider such fines of $1,000 to $10,000 a day as excessive? And if you do, would you revisit the bylaw and find a more reasonable amount so that we in the retirement community wouldn't have to consider selling our home? Thank you.
I'm going to respond to your question quite simply. Once elected, I will not impose any fines because I do not believe taxpayers should be fined over an issue that they did not want in the first place. And Mayor say once elected, with the help of proper counsel, I will put an immediate moratorium on the issue until we have further discussion with the citizens.
Okay, next question.
Christine Thompson, live in the city of Grand Forks. I'm a candidate for councillor. My question is directed to you, Frank Conrad. You indicated in one of your comments that the infrastructure and the report that you referred to from 2009 said that we should be going and doing these things and upgrading the infrastructure now. Inasmuch as the citizens gave us $4.3 million at the last election to help leverage other grants from senior levels of government, If you're not prepared to wait for those and you're wanting to forge ahead, how do you propose to pay for $127 million of infrastructure upgrades required?
In response, for one, I would not have endeavored on the adventure of doing $1.3 million on the water meter project when we have a serious issue in the ground. Secondly, the paving of 68th Street. Why was it done without the infrastructure being looked at underneath first? Or is it to a quoted comment, and I may quote this comment made by one of our elected officials? It is relatively cheaper to pave now, and we can wait for the underground infrastructure till later.
Anybody else want to make that discussion? Okay, Brian?
Just to clarify, there was a complete review of the infrastructure on the alignment of 68.
Okay, next question. Oh, sorry.
What I would propose is that we do it one step at a time as we can afford it. And we get creative about how to get money. And maybe some of us advance a little bit of money to the city. Maybe there's other ways we can do it. Maybe we can do fundraisers. But I think to bank on grants is wishing on a hope and a prayer. We might get lucky, but I think we gotta face the facts and we gotta figure out how we're gonna pay for the things we need.
Good evening. Laura Saddleman from the Boundary Peace Initiative. I'm going to change the tone a bit here from the water meters. I think I can manage this issue, but I think we need to just think a little bit of something else beyond just our own little part of the valley too. Just a few days ago, the federal government proposed putting tanks and light armored vehicles in communities across the country to honor and glorify the war in Afghanistan. What is your position on this? What would you do if you were approached? Share.
Thank you for your question, Laura, but I didn't quite understand what your question is about putting tanks
as memorials in communities to the Afghan war and to the glorifying the Canadian deployment in Afghanistan for 12 years.
Well, excuse me, but I haven't seen this. I have respectfully and sadly witnessed what happened to an unarmed soldier at the cenotaph in Ottawa. And realizing that there are world issues out there far beyond what we comprehend here in our safe little haven. But there comes a time when you do stand up for your country. And those people that choose to do that, I respect them so highly.
Okay, no follow-ups.
No, I just need time to follow up.
Yeah. Okay, Aaron?
Erin Perkins, I do live in Area D, so I can't vote for any of you, but I do have a question that I think would be on some people's minds. I wish I could ask all of the candidates who never served as councillors, but I know I have to pick one, so I'll pick Mr. Dempsey. So to Mr. Dempsey and all the other councillors, or all the other candidates who have not served as councillors before running for mayor, what makes you think you can do the job of mayor?
Well, I'm a leader. I'm a Leo for one thing, which is kind of a born leader. So, and I run a trailer park. If I can run a trailer park, I can run a town. It's that simple.
Next question.
My name is Cindy Westbury. I'd like to direct my question to Councilor Myers. I am a politically active youth in the community. I'm serving my second year in the British Columbia Youth Parliament this year, serving as the Minister of the Interior. Councilor Myers has successfully created the Head Start for Women program this year that's gone quite well, that I've learned quite a lot about from my friend Jacqueline Salter, who's been part of the program, and had a conference with Councillor candidate Teresa Taylor as well attending. And I would like to ask Councillor Myers what she plans to do to encourage more youth development in Grand Forks for politics.
You came up with our MLA Linda Larson when we were discussing the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Head Start pilot project that was here in Grand Forks. And it was a one-year pilot program funded by the Women's Institute of Canada through FCM, through our federal membership. From there, our young core girls, 16 to 24, decided, they came up with a project and they designed a shelf-ready empowerment conference that we're going to be holding in 2015, early 2015. Also, their key focus is seeing a youth advisory council established in our community. A youth group of boys and girls, young women, young men, who can shadow our city council, shadow the workings around our city staff, and get involved, because that's what community is all about. Our community is about our governments, and about our neighbors, and about what it takes to run this city. So my plan is to introduce, through the strategic planning that starts in January, a youth advisory council for this community.
Any other candidate want to jump in on this one? Okay, gentleman on my left.
My name's Murray Reddy. I live in Grand Forks since '99. And I have a question for Mr. Taylor. My sister lives in Lumley, and when they put in the water meters there, their rates went up by 30 to 40%. I just wonder if the rates here will do the same thing, or are you only going to use the water meters to recover the actual cost instead of pad your budget?
We certainly are not going to pad our budget on water rates. We've established a citizens committee. I think there are 12 people on it now that will be monitoring and reviewing how those rates are set. So our plan is to run a mock billing period for at least a year, so people can read their meters and see what their consumption is, and then looking at just cost recovery. That's what we're looking for. We're not planning to make any profit on it. We're planning to run an economical system, and that cost recovery is the bottom line.
Thank you, sir. Sorry, there are no follow-up questions. Anybody else want to jump in on that one? Okay.
Hi, I'm Tammy Battersby. I've operated a business here for about 3 years, but I've only lived here for a year. I'm quite happy to be here. In your opening statement, Brian, you had mentioned the need for us to remember that we're a city and that there's social concerns. And I want to address my question to Chair. I want to know what you think are our most pressing social concerns and how you would deal with those concerns should you be elected.
Thank you, Tammy, and welcome to Grand Forks as a newcomer. Yes, we do have social problems. Everybody has social problems. And I'm very proud of the work that 3 of our organizations have already done. Habitat for Humanity, Whispers of Hope, and Boundary Emergency Transition Housing. I was going to say the acronym. Anyway, those organizations are going to need support. And I'm going to put a call out to you right now, here this evening. for those who can come out and volunteer and assist those organizations in keeping that facility a Class 1 recognized province-wide partnership. Those 3 organizations came together as a result of coming before council, looking for grants and aids to pay their utility bills, to do operational expenses. So we are going to have to work on supporting that organization to assist those people in our community, and maybe somebody who's transitioning through our community who need the help.
Peter?
The Beths and those things are all very fine, but it's only a temporary solution to the homeless problem. The fact of the matter is people are not going to want to live in a shelter. People want to have something to somewhat call their own, and I think that we need to look at alternatives to the homeless problem. Like, for example, what I've done is, have a trailer park in the bush because, these people, they don't mind staying in there for a short period of time, but they need something more permanent, and you got to offer an alternative. And so we need to look at alternative ways of solving the homeless problem.
Peter's right. There is a problem with people that are disenfranchised, and the solution is not an easy one. It involves a number of factors that play together in terms of mental health, substance use, plain old poverty, and physical health problems. I mean, those are all players in what ends up in putting people on the streets in our city. And so we need some unique approaches to that. That's not a simple solution at all.
Sylvia Treptow, I live in Grand Forks. Mayor Taylor, over the last year, we've become aware of 2 separate projects that have been brought forward to council. One of them is the Trails Society. They brought forth proposed budget for projects. 1.1 million was designed for more paving of Trans-Canada Trail outside of city boundaries. The second project is the Phoenix Ski Hill. They were granted 32 extra hectares by the province. Last year, they came to the city and to the regional district seeking funding just for their ordinary operating expenses. If these projects go ahead, are the citizens going to be allowed to have a say through referendum on whether or not their taxes are increased to pay for them? And how can you justify spending our tax money on recreational projects outside of the city when our infrastructure is neglected?
Thank you, Sylvia. In terms of the ski hill has been placed on the list of healthy recreational activities that we will pay for as a region. So that has been brought into the same area of funding as the pool and the rec center and the arena. As far as the trails go, I see the trails as meeting an important need for all of us in this community of accessibility. And if we can participate in that, great. The city will not bear the major burden of this. This is shared by a number of funders. And so we'll play our share, but we're not going to take the whole concept.
The application for the trails, the paving of the trails that we extended outside of our boundaries somewhat, that's what I call a partnership. That's about us being neighbors. It's just a very small portion of 10 kilometers. But you gotta stop and think, that is also infrastructure. Okay, so you can't drive your car on it, but it's bicycles, walking traffic, horseback, that is also considered infrastructure.
of these projects, as a resident and taxpayer, I'm concerned. We have infrastructure to take care of. The grants are not guaranteed. I think we need to evaluate where our financial priorities are. I would welcome public input because we're going to have to live with the consequences of those decisions.
Thank you, Joanna. And that was your third rebuttal.
Thank you. It's for Brian. And I'm following something that's very interesting about this city is in we have all the infrastructure we can have to do really well, mainly electric, because we own our own power. And I'm really for adding solar, and they'd be the best thing. But it's not only that. I have a little pet peeve, and my little pet peeve is not this microphone. I worked 3 years ago on putting fiber optic in that whole town.
So you have to get to the question.
Yeah, the question is really fast. Okay, we have an infrastructure is going up to observation. The whole town and the tourist attraction will be with it. We can have Wi-Fi for the whole town for free. Now, did the city have the guts to be able to go for Shaw and tell us and said to them, well, too bad, okay, because we can have that for free. Or the city can make money out of it as well.
The fiber optics are in place in town here. We are taking advantage of them now in terms of voiceover and various other savings with big industry. They have the potential, as Jill is saying, to put Wi-Fi everywhere. I'm not sure that everybody in this crowd would agree with the RF radiation issues.
Okay, we have 6 folks at the microphones right now, and that will be the last. 7 folks, that's it, okay? So 7 more questions, and then we're gonna bring that to an end. Okay, Jacques, you have the microphone.
My name is Jacques Mackay. I'm a resident and a freeman of the city of Grand Forks. My question is to candidate Conrad. If you get elected, you will be dealing with a council of 6 people plus all the staff in the headquarters there. Now, I've listened to you speaking at the post office when you've had your little meetings there, and it appears to me that you're a very angry man. Do you think that you can curb that anger when you're dealing with the council?
The way the situation is occurring in Grand Forks right now, are you not angry or are you happy with your situation? Furthermore, the issues that I wish to establish in Grand Forks, it will be based on a solid council. I am not their boss. I am just working with council and with the city. That is my intention. I do not intend to be a form of a dictator.
I'm Nancy Mitchell. I am a resident of Grand Forks for about 8 years now. I'm pleased that the conversation has broadened a bit into some issues that are really important to me, which are more the social issues, housing, homelessness, poverty, mental health addictions, and I realize there's a limited amount that a city government can do on these issues. But another thing I want to say is that
You need to get to your question.
what I want to know, and I'd like to ask Mr. Conrad this, I'm curious to hear what your thoughts would be on some of these issues and what sort of positive vision you have. I think you've done a good job articulating your displeasure with what's gone on so far. And I want to know both A, what sort of vision you might have in some of these areas, and B, how you would propose to pay for any of the programs or activities, whether they be infrastructure or otherwise.
Although it's a broad question, Frank, you still have 2 minutes.
Yes, I realize that. There wasn't actually a distinct question in that, but I'll try to answer it the best of my ability. As far as growth goes, which is, I believe, one of your questions, am I correct? No.
What's your positive vision for the social aspects of our community, and how would you pay for your program?
Simply by, first of all, encouraging industry and business to come to Grand Forks by giving them incentives, at which way there will be tax dollars generated, which will help the citizens of the city.
Come closer to the mic.
I've lived in Grand Forks for 8 years, a little over 8 years. And this past few months, we were encouraged to put in the water meters. I hate to even bring that subject up because it's quite annoying. Anyway, this gentleman that had told us about his mother that lived in Kamloops or somewhere, that was told that her meters, her water was going to go up through rates, I'm sorry. And Brian Taylor mentioned that there'll be a lockup bill that's coming to our house for a year or so. And if we want to know how much water we're using, we could read it. Well, you'd have to be a fly in my house to be able to read that meter the way it's connected into the little spot that it's in. So and the question is, why? Well, first of all, I don't like the meters. Secondly, I don't know why we would even have to read those meters to find out what water we're using. If the water meter was, if there was a water meter, I'm not exactly sure how I can put this, but why does it have to be that we have to read the meter to find out how much water we use?
Okay. Brian, you've got that question.
I see water meters as a tool that helps you change your consumption level of water. And unfortunately, if you're not able to read it, I think there are some possibilities here that you could read it electronically so that you could actually get it on your computer. I'm not sure if we've initiated anything close to that yet, but if you can't read it, it's not doing the job that we want it to do, which is to tell you what consumption you're using.
Okay, next.
And I had a question for all of the candidates.
I have to pick one.
Oh, okay. Frank, you want to attract big business to Grand Forks, and you said incentives is one thing. But how are you going to cover the fact that any large company coming to Grand Forks with young people, young couples who want to have children, after 100 years, they can no longer have their children in Grand Forks. They have to go over 2 mountain passes. How is that going to get a company eager to come into the city?
Obviously, it would have to be a twofold step. Our hospital system would have to be enlarged because right now we don't have the facilities for even wards for giving birth, for surgeries. We don't have the facilities here. The bigger picture is industry coming here and big business. That's not something that can happen from today till tomorrow. Obviously, we all know that. When we speak of vision, it could be for 5, 10 years down the road. It will not be achieved overnight. Anyone that thinks it will, they're dreaming in Technicolor. I'm not a dreamer.
I think the answer to this is that the community has not been asked for feedback very much. I think if you check back with Chris Thompson and the group she led a few years back, the ministry is now asking the communities, there's a deadline of December 31st, to submit concerns they have. Obstetrics is a very complex one, but there are other healthcare concerns, and I think it's a step forward that we as a community are being asked to participate in an input to interior health.
Monique Hewitt, Grand Forks residents. This question is for Sharon. You are one of 2 council members who voted to give big industries a tax break. As a taxpayer in this town, this is actually quite concerning to me, especially considering you just said that we are having a problem with our taxes. We don't have enough. How, as mayor, could you protect us citizens from going deeper in debt with taxes by cutting these industries who can afford to pay their taxes a break?
An excellent question. And I'll take you back a little bit. Industry in this community, we were reliant very heavily back when the crash happened in 2008, and back when we lost Camp Hart. So at that time, when I first joined my first term as city councillor, we looked at balancing out, moving some of that industrial tax over to other levels of taxation in our residential and commercial. The commercial is already high, so it's residential. And if you look at our residential tax assessment rates, we look pretty darn good around this province. So yes, I voted against it because I wanted to continue with the plan to do a gradual increase and the transfer of the taxes to our residents. And that was my intent. Industries, you know, are just as fickle with profits. They look pretty big out there, but their bottom line has a limit as well. So that was my reasoning.
Grand Forks. This is a question for Sharon. If you're elected, how will this community look different 4 years from now, and what will you have done to get us there?
Thank you so much, Christy. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm a leader. And there's opportunities for us to partner with our Area D. I think one of the biggest misunderstandings or that we don't know about is how we differ in governance from our regional district and municipal government. And that's a role that I have been working on at AKBLG, the Association of Kootenay Boundary Local Governments, that I have been the executive director representing our region since 2012. And it's a constant discussion at all our tables because we have this difference that does separate us. That, you know, the regional district is there providing services, and yet we have a regional district surrounding our city, and everybody here uses the roads and infrastructure. So how is a community of taxation of under 4,000 people to maintain that or sustain it? So I see an opportunity for more collaboration, working together, and working with the provincial government to probably look at the governance levels that we both have. And maybe we can open up some of the communication lines there as well.
Thank you. And the last question.
Hi, I'm Betty Ann Mackay, and I've lived in Grand Forks since 1980. And my question is for Mr. Conrad. You were talking about democracy. Well, next week we're having democracy. We're all going to vote. If you become mayor, are you planning to run the city by referendum? Thank you.
say first and foremost, I don't believe in referendums. The R word costs taxpayers money. That's one issue where I believe tax breaks should be given or tax cuts should be made. So if I'm going to initiate referendums on every issue that the citizens have, we're going to go broke. My position on this is Once elected, and if elected, my doors will always be open to the public on their suggestions and ideas, and we will not need referendum because I believe we will not have controversial issues that we will need to fight over.
Anybody want to weigh in? Last question? Okay, so this concludes our question period. We're now entering the last phase of our all candidates forum, and that's closing remarks. The order of speakers is reversed from the opening remarks order, so I'll read off the list. We'll be starting off with Cher, going to Frank, Peter, Brian, and Donna will be winding up the evening. So, Cher, you're up. 2 minutes.
Well, Grand Forks is having an election. First of all, I want to thank you all for coming up this evening, and it was a very interesting opportunity to hear your questions and your concerns. I highly respect the office of mayor, and I can provide the leadership needed to get the job done. Council sets the direction, the staff implements the decisions, and I want to be driving the bus. There's going to be hard choices to be made, but every decision will be built with trust. I do see you, and I do hear you, and I am a good listener. So I encourage you to come out to the strategic and financial planning sessions with lots of questions. Take advantage of every open house to be part of the discussion and bring your visions. We're already making the physical changes. It's the emotional change that needs to take place, ladies and gentlemen. We're living in an online world, and there is no lack of information and tools to access. Remember to ask yourself, who are we and where are we? Finally, what will they think of us in the future? I want to see a new chapter in the history of Grand Forks. So to my fellow candidates, good luck in your campaign to serve your community. On November the 15th, I'm asking for your vote to be your next mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Cher. Frank Conner.
Recapping some of the issues that affect all of us, including myself. We need growth in business, I've mentioned, and other sectors. Our misspent tax dollars that are conveyed to us as being acceptable and in our best interests. Again, our failing infrastructure as of May 2009 was so critical, and yet not a shovel has broken ground to date, except for the broken water mains, which seem to be occurring quite frequently. I believe 68th Street was an incomplete project. Where are the bicycle lanes, gravel on the side? But yes, we did have a ribbon cutting ceremony. The referendum question on the deer call on our ballots. Yet we didn't have a referendum on the water meter issue, even though we had over 800 signatures on a petition. The deer call, in my opinion, is just another diversionary tactic to throw everybody off the real issues affecting us. And now we've got a medical marijuana dispensary. Hopefully this isn't the type of business we were looking for when we're saying Grand Forks is open for business. And hopefully we didn't win our business award for this kind of business. Obviously, transparency is definitely mission, and attentiveness to the requests and needs of our citizens. Where were their listening ears when they were needed? I will represent you with a strong, honest, attentive, and open-minded leadership, and my door will always be open to the citizens. So vote for change, vote for me, so that we can all achieve the vision and recognition. Thank you for your support.
Okay, Mr. Peter Pimson.
Well, I'm just going to go say in closing that taxes alone are not going to get Grand Forks out of the hole it's in. Basically, we need to think outside the box, and we need to do something drastic to turn this town around. When my grandmother was alive, she liked to play at the casino. And that is just, I know it's a controversial issue, but it would bring tourists to the area, as well as people are gambling already. It would give them better odds, at least, you know. So, and then not only that, you know, there's other ideas to turn the town around. Like we could do a water slide outside of town. And I also see a lot of there's industrial area that could be developed. Like, why is the finger joint mill sitting empty out of Christina Lake? You know, we got to go to companies like boots on the ground, and we need to talk to them. Like former people that were interested in moving here, like Paxton Pohl, I know they got a sour taste in their mouth after the last time they were here. But if we can reapproach people like that and get them here and set up jobs for the community, then the rest should follow kind of suit, you know. And that's basically all I gotta say. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Brian Kayla.
When I've met with my fellow mayors and councillors around the province, I tell them about what we do here in Grand Forks with our committee of the whole meetings, where we meet at 9 in the morning till approximately noon, and we then meet again for the formal meeting at 7 at night. The questions I get from are why do you do that? And the answer is because we want to be transparent. Get ready for the boo. What offends me most about the transparency comments are that we're not listening. The risk is, if you don't agree with people, they point a finger and tell you you're not listening. I could repeat the arguments that I've heard from the anti-water meter group by rote memory. It's not that we're not listening, we just don't agree. So what I promise you in the next year is that we'll continue with the economic development initiatives. Those are just beginning to show, and I think that we're going to see some really spectacular things for this community in the coming years. We have a housing problem, we have seniors that are low income, we have a healthcare system that is being asked to respond to this growth in seniors population, and they need to be watched. So I'm thinking that there's all kinds of things here that are going to be important for us to work as a community in the coming 4 years. And I thank you very much. I've been really pleased to work for you for the last 4 years, and I ask for your support again. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And our closing speaker is Donna Simmons.
Thank you for this opportunity for all of us to share here today. I've shared with you in the paper and today the things that are important to me that affect how I do things. I care about how people are treated in Grand Forks. That means how the government treats the people, as well as how people treat each other. I care about the economic situation, affordability, and I care about the environment. I have things to offer. I have a communications background. I believe we could do a much better job at listening and working together. In the process of running for this election, I've met interesting people who have creative ideas about how we can attract tourism, creative ideas about how we could work with solar. We have a rare East-West Valley, which has lots of sunshine. I believe we have lots of untapped talent, and we can work together to address many issues. I advocate a process where citizens are more involved in early stages and have an opportunity to provide input. And in the unfortunate situation that maybe things don't work out with this 4-year long term, I personally feel reassured as a resident if there is something that a large group of citizens are concerned about, that there's something they can do. For example, get a referendum via petition. Our neighbors out in Alberta, the Yukon and Northwest Territories have that option. Rossland has tried it in the 1990s. So I ask you to please consider that. Voting for me means a voice for you and excellent communication and caring for the community.
Thank you, candidates, and I, as the moderator, appreciate your cooperation. Thank you very much, and all the best to you in the upcoming election. Thank you to the Boundary Country Regional Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring this event, and thank you all for coming out. It's been a great turnout.